Hey guys, today I'm here with Sam Ovens. Sam is the founder of Snap Inspect and he has a pretty awesome story when he built a software company without knowing how to code a single line. Hi Sam, great to have you here.
Glad to be here.
Thanks man. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? How did you start being an entrepreneur?
Um, so when I was about, I think I must have been about 20 years old, um, I just, I didn't really like my job. I'd gone to college, got a job at Vodafone. I didn't really like the job at all. I thought, this isn't what I worked, you know,
Yeah,
20 years to do. And so, I just jumped in and started my first business, which was like a job board website, which didn't work out. That took about, a year and about 10,000 bucks. And then I started another website. That didn't work out either. And, for the first 2 years, I just lost a lot of money and wasted a lot of time, but, learned some valuable lessons. Um, and then I started Snap Inspect about 2 years in, with a completely new look on like how to start businesses, um, and real experience of failure.
yeah.
Um, and so Snap Inspect worked well. And today Snap Inspect's about just over a year old.
Mm,
Um, and it's doing really well.
that's cool. When you had this 2 years of a very hard time and losing all this money, what made you kept going on? Why didn't you just quit and got back to work?
Well, I was still working while I did those other two companies.
Okay.
Um, because my philosophy was, or my strategy was, at least I've got to make like $100 a month before I quit my job, and my
Yeah.
businesses weren't even doing that. Um, so I still had my job. I sucked at my job because I was always thinking about, my entrepreneurship stuff.
Yeah.
And I sucked at entrepreneurship because I was, time restrained and all of that from my job. So like, it's kind of a hard decision. When do I quit? I actually didn't really start making, traction until I did quit. But your question was, why didn't I give up?
Yeah.
I don't know, nothing changed. Like, I still had to do the same job. I mean, I lost some money, some time went by, but you also learn a lot of lessons. You're like, oh, I'd never do that again. So, like, the more you have those realizations and the more you go, oh, I'll never do that again. Well, you don't do it again. The closer you get to success anyway.
Yeah.
Um, it's really hard to tell. It's really hard to think like that when you start out because you're like, oh, my first business might fail. Um, but I mean, it's just entrepreneurship, right?
You mean that's what it is about getting better every time you try?
Yeah, I'm not saying your first business has to fail, but I mean, there's a pretty good chance.
Yeah.
Um, and like, look at any successful entrepreneur,
Mm.
any of them, like most of them have hit, their first couple of things probably didn't work out.
Yeah, and they just didn't give up. You said that you had a different approach when you built Snap Inspect.
Mm.
How did you start that company? How did you find the market? How did you find the need? And what made you decide that you need a software-based company when you don't know how to code?
Sure. Um, so the first thing I did was I decided to go B2B instead of, um, business to consumer.
Hmm.
Um, so I decided I was going to go B2B. That was a big one. And then I picked a market and I picked property management companies. And I started emailing and calling property managers and, asking them What's the most painful part about being a property manager? Like on a day-to-day basis, what's the task that you hate doing the most?
Yeah.
Um, and I just started having conversations with people in that market. And after about 20 calls, I really noticed a trend, and that trend was property inspections. Um, and I thought, okay, so here's how they're currently doing property inspections. And what they were doing is they were using a clipboard, pen, paper, digital camera, and they were driving to the property, completing a printed checklist with pen and paper, um, taking photos with the digital camera, driving back to the office, uploading it all to the computer, opening up Word, formatting it, typing it all up, making it look nice,
Yeah.
and then they were saving it to their computer, and then they'd write an email and then attach the document and send it. And so I could see why it was painful. I mean, they have to do about, on average, a property manager does about 600 inspections a year.
Oh man.
Yeah, 600 a year. And I mean, you think about how painful that would be,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's a
And
quite
I
inefficient
mean,
process.
reports are often 20 pages long too.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, it sucked, the current process. And I thought, shit, I didn't know how to build an app, but I was like, if there was an app that, you could do this and this with,
Yeah.
would that solve the problem? And they were like, yes, definitely.